Right, now Mr. Minich, we have Mr. Dowden back.
Please.
Please. You all right? No, try and have this one.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll have that one. I'll give it a try, thank you. Right, Mr. Dowden, happy to carry on?
Yes.
Let me know if you need a break at any time.
Roger, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Millett.
Mr. Dowden, I was in the middle of a question when we stopped, and based on the generic risk assessment 3.2, which I appreciate is a document or policy you're not familiar with. Can I just take a step back and try and shorten things a little bit?
Yes.
In terms of your seniority as a watch manager, could you put some context around that? So who would be below you as a watch manager at North Kensington?
I'd have two junior officers of the rank of crew manager, and I have two of those at the time in the fire in June 2017. I had two crew managers.
Are you not picking up the witness? Right, well, the usher's gone to speak to the technical people. We'll just have to wait a moment because, just so you all understand, this has got to go on a transcript and a live feed, so we can't do anything until we're up and running. Sorry, thank you. Can you just see what the problem is? I'm not on there either, but it's the transcribers who need your attention. Yeah, thanks so much.
Test.
Mr. Millett.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Dowden, can I continue with my question just about your seniority and where you fit into the London Fire Brigade hierarchy? So you've explained who was junior to you at the time of the Grenfell Tower fire at North Kensington. Could you just explain the seniority of the ranks above you?
So above me there will be a station manager who would be responsible for the running of all four watches at North Kensington, and that would be replicated across all London fire stations. Above that you'll have what we call a group manager, a borough commander. So in respect of North Kensington, the borough commander would be in charge of the Kensington and Chelsea borough, and that includes North Kensington Fire Station, Chelsea Fire Station and Kensington Fire Station. Mm-hmm. Above that you have a Deputy Assistant Commissioner, and there's who will be in charge of an area. And there's 4 areas within the London Fire Brigade. The area I work in is the southwest area, so a Deputy Assistant Commissioner will be in charge of that specific area and all the stations within that area. Above them you have ACs, and they are in charge of specific, maybe fire stations, quality assurance, etc. And above that you have director level, which is you have the Commissioner, Director for Contractual and Financial Services, Director of Operations, and Director of Safety and Assurance.
Right, thank you very much. Now, I asked you some questions earlier about the generic risk assessment 3.2, and you did explain that it wasn't a document you were familiar with. Can I show you the London Fire Brigade policy for high-rise firefighting, which is policy 633, which is in tab 4 of the policies bundle, which we looked at before. And can I ask you please to turn to internal page 19, appendix 1. And this is a list of things that under 7.2D or on 7.2D visits personnel should ensure they're familiar with and their impact on firefighting and search and rescue operations. And you can see there on the screen a long list of things. My question is that list familiar to you from policy 633?
It's something I've seen in the past, yes.
Yeah. And when you do 7.2D visits, who at North Kensington or in the London Fire Brigade generally is responsible for ensuring that watches that do 7.2D visits look at the things on the list?
The 7.2D process will follow a sort of a system. So we'll go out, local crews will go out to visit premise. They'll gather the relevant information, and this will be uploaded onto a brigade system called the ORD, the Operational Risk Database. Once the information has been uploaded onto the Operational Risk Database and that's been submitted, then that will go through to the relevant station manager of that particular station for verification. If the station manager is happy with the quality of that information, then that will then get further submitted to our PDA section, which is a predetermined attendance section, who have overriding sort of authorisation on that. If at any one of those 2 points, the assurance points, the station manager or our PDA department aren't happy or with the quality of the information that's been gathered, then they can refer that back to station level, and within the ORD, the Operational Review Database system, they can annotate comments against that and point the station personnel in the right direction in terms of where the information is lacking.
Thank you. And looking at this shopping list and picking up the line of questions I was asking you about before we broke for lunch, can you see that about halfway down this bullet point list, there's a reference to floor layouts and any building construction features? And I'll go on. Floor layouts and any building construction features which may promote rapid or abnormal fire spread, such as sandwich panels, timber frame construction, atria or voids. On your visits to Grenfell Tower that we saw earlier this morning in 2016, did you look at any of those features?
The only one I can really have any recollection of would be the floor layouts itself.
And I know it doesn't say cladding in this list, but can I just ask, did you, when you did your 7.2D visit at Grenfell Tower, look at the cladding?
That's something I didn't look at, I wasn't aware of, and having known what I know now, that's certainly something I would have looked at without doubt.
Yeah. Thank you. Just a couple more questions on visits. Can I ask you to look at the bundle tab 27, which is a run of emails, the reference to which is LFB 0000129 and following. And I just want to show you this, Mr. Dowden, just to see if I can prompt your recollection of a visit in the summer of 2016. If you go to that run of emails and turn to page 1130, well, it's 1135.1 and point 2. We start with point 2, because like all emails, they're backwards. If you go to the second, Mr. Trial Director, if you can go to the next document in the run. Right, thank you. You'll see at the top of the page, this is an email from Nicholas Davis to you, Mr. Dowden, dated the 20th of July 2016. Subject, Grenfell, advising LFB operational crews of works completion. Importance high. Mike, could you contact Janice Ray regarding the request to attend Tuesday morning? You have a QA1 with GM Davis scheduled, but he'll be away on leave, so that will not happen. This will be a good opportunity for crews to ask any questions with the site agent before they leave. And your response to that comes on the next page, the page before, where you go back to Nicholas Davis the next day, 21st of July 2016, and copy to Janice Ray. And Janice, we can attend on Tuesday. Would 11:30 hours be okay? I'm off duty now until Tuesday morning. I will pick up your response then. And then the last document, which is just a little bit above that on the same page, the response from Janice Ray of the 22nd of July to you, copy to Nicholas Davis and other people at the KCTMO. Hi Michael, thanks for coming back to me. The ride and site agent Dave Hughes has confirmed that Tuesday 11:30 for familiarisation at Grenfell Tower is convenient for him. He will see you then. Regards, Janice. Now, just looking at that short email exchange, does that prompt a recollection in your mind as to a visit in July 2016 to Grenfell Tower?
That's the visit I'll be alluding to in my statement, yes.
Right, I see. So at that stage, what did the works look like, the refurbishment works, in terms of how they were completed?
I honestly can't recall
And
that at the time.
Do you remember being shown round, or rather, do you remember meeting the site agent, the ride and site agent?
As I referred to previously, yes, I do remember making contact with a representative from Rydens, yes.
And do you remember whether it was Dave Hughes? That was his name?
I can't remember his name, no.
Right, okay. And summarising it, would it be right, given what you said this morning about your visit, or visits, that apart from the dry rising main, well, let me ask the question this way. Apart from looking at the dry rising main, did you look at anything else so far as firefighting and evacuation was concerned at Grenfell Tower on that visit or the visit in February?
The only other thing that, as I mentioned before, is in terms of the fire engineering solutions of the smoke extract system. That was whether that was covered in either or of those visits. That's my memory, and also looking at the floor layout, because I do remember that particularly in the lift lobby areas, the dry rise outlet being in that left-hand corner. So there must have been some information gathering in terms of that lobby layout area as well.
So, on the basis of what you've just said, can we take it that that's the totality? That's all you would have
as I can remember as of this point, yes.
Yes, thank you very much. Mr. Dowden, I'm now going to go, before I go to the night, just to a very small number of documents, just to see if you can help me with them. Can I ask you first to look at the document in our bundle, tab 2, which is LFB 0000144. Now, this is a document. I'll give you the date. It's not on this page, it's at the back, but I'll tell you the date of it. It's 3rd of November 2016. And you can see from the top, it's called the London Fire Brigade's Fire Safety Regulation Premises Inspection and Data Collection Form. The first question is, have you ever seen this type of document before?
No, I haven't. No. I would presume that's not something that generally would be filtered down to the station-based level. I can only presume that's something that would be for a fire safety department.
Right. So if I was to ask you any questions about this document, would you be able to help me?
No.
Right, then I won't. Next document is tab 13 of the bundle, LFB 00003116. And this is an LFB document which says ORD at the top. Are you familiar with this type of document?
Yes, I am.
Could you explain what it is, please?
This is part of the, as you see, the ORD at the top, the operational risk database. So this is for when crews go and visit a premise. And I was alluding to earlier in terms of the quality assurance of that by either the station manager or our predetermined attendance department. Either any visits from a station level or any changes we can maybe annotate on that. This will be born off of the system, so it's electronically filed. And also comments from either the station manager or the PDA department will also be populated within this document.
Thank you. Now, at the top, you'll see that it's completed by Ricketts D. I think that's Dean Ricketts.
That's correct.
Is it? Yes. And could you just explain who he is?
He is a watch manager, be like myself, and he's in charge of the North Kensington Green Watch.
Green Watch?
Yes.
Is he senior to you or junior to you?
No, he's the same
He's
rank.
the same?
Yeah.
Is he watch manager A or B?
He's watch manager B.
He's B. Oh, he's B as well. Oh, right.
Yes.
And it's dated the 15th of February 2017. And if you just look through the document just over the page, it starts at the bottom and it runs, as it were, upwards. So the most recent, it looks like the comments come in and are piled on top of each other. And it starts at, if you go over the page, with an entry on the 10th of February 2015. And I think that's after your 72D visit in February 2015. Excuse me, I got that wrong. That's before your 2016 visit. And it says Grenfell Tower is currently undergoing major refurbishment. 9 extra flats are being added, taking the block to a total of 129 flats. The DRM is being moved to outside the building and work is scheduled for completion on the 23rd of October 2015. Grenfell Road is frequently blocked by site vehicles now, and the bottom 2 to 3 floors of the tower are site offices and a building site, although access to the DRM and lifts remain. And it's put on there by someone called Healy A. Who is that?
Andrew Healy is a crew manager on the Green Watch.
Group manager,
No,
Green.
crew manager.
Crew manager.
Crew manager, yeah.
I see. And if you go to the next page, or the first page of the document, going back in the bundle one page, you go to the bottom of that page, and there it refers to a site visit to Grenfell Tower, and the user is Dowden M. I assume that's you, Mr.
That's
Dowden,
correct.
with the date of the 3rd of February 2016, and that would have been the day after your 72D visit we looked at on the visit schedule this morning. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And it says site visit to Grenfell Tower following refurbishment of the block. A temp dry riser inlet will be installed on 4th floor to allow additions to residential accommodation being added to 2nd and 3rd floors. This should only occur for a period of 3 days. Authority will be informed when this occurs. RIDE and building contractor are currently liaising with fire safety. Is that the information you put onto the ORD yourself?
Yes.
Did you put any other information onto the ORD as a result of your visit? I mean, I think, take it from me, it's not on this document.
I don't. If I had, then it would be available for all people through that RD system.
Right.
But I can't remember.
Okay. And then it continues on up the page, and at the top, it says entry via front door. And this is the entry by Ricketts D, 15th of February 2017. Entry via front door. If drop key is used, this will release the internal door between entry lobby and lift lobby. Just pausing there, can you help us with what a drop key is?
A drop key is a fire service key, and it allows us two uses. It will allow us to get into, not just specific to high-rise, to a secure access block if it's residential, but it also allows us to command the majority of firefighting lifts in the event of a fire in a high-rise block.
Okay. Where's the drop key normally kept?
It should be kept in a set of fire appliance keys that's on lift keys, we call it a lift key bag, that's on the front of every frontline pumping appliance, whether that's a pump ladder or a pump.
I see. Okay, thank you. And we may come to this in detail later, but can you use the drop key normally to access a building which is protected with electronic security and a fob system?
That's correct.
You normally can you?
You normally can, yeah.
Can I ask you then to go to another document, tab 14, next tab, which is LFB 00003596. And this is a series of screenshots from something called the station diary. Are you familiar with this document or this run of screenshots, this kind of thing?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Can you explain what it is?
That there is a screenshot of the our electronic system that helps us sort of gather and process the information that we will obtain on a high-rise or a familiarisation visit.
I see.
And that first screen there is the screen drop from an internal software system, our station diary, that allows us to access the RD system.
Okay. And you can identify, can you, who fills this document in?
It's auditable, yes.
Right. So if we look, for example, at page 4 of 13 internally, you can see if you blow it up, that at the bottom it says a risk matrix for this address, and this is Grenfell Tower. Was last completed by Watch Manager B. Ricketts D on 15th of February 2017 at North Kensington Fire Station, Greenwatch. So from that, would it be right, just want to ask you, that whoever goes on the 72D visit or other kind of visit would fill in this document on the station diary?
Not to a full extent. There'd be a lot of information already on the 72D process or system, so you won't necessarily have to do a full and robust information gathering, because a lot of that information should already be there. The expectation is it should be there. If it was the first time anyone had visited that premise, then yes, that is correct. However, you may have to make slight amendments because things do change within properties, and whether that's residential or commercial.
Yeah.
And the way that will be identified is from that previous screenshot we saw, which was the audit process of who's actually updated that system.
Right. Could you turn to page 9, please, within the run of screenshots? And just, I wonder if there's any way of enlarging the page just a little bit. Well, before the trial director does that, can you see, Mr. Dowden, on this page of these screenshots, it says building specific tab unchecked, and then underneath it there's another box that says building specific tab checked.
Yep.
Could you just explain the difference between the unchecked box and the checked box? If you're having difficulty seeing it,
so
we can get it.
this is a
No.
this is a a system, a format that helps us identify at station level the risk and, according to that risk, how regularly we need to visit that building. So the one where it says unchecked, every single one of those currently, if it's not highlighted in blue, has not been checked by someone inputting some data onto that system. So we physically have to open that system up and click on the relevant number corresponding to what information we've identified or gathered on the visit.
Right. So just looking at, just following that up a little bit, if you look at the unchecked box, just below where it says environment-specific risk to staff and public, there's it's not on the screen, but it says, Mr. Trial Director, I don't know if you can get down a bit further, there, a risk matrix completed by Ricketts 15th February 17. So when you look at that box, is it right that where it's unchecked, it's because Mr. Ricketts has decided not to check the particular item?
I can't say that's true, no. He may have checked that specific item, but unfortunately, sometimes the systems are only good as a data entry.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. I won't press it too much further. Just to push it a little bit, though. Can you see items 405 and 407?
Yes.
405, flammable core sandwich panel construction.
Yes.
407, modern methods of construction, unusual design materials. First of all, what are those numbers? Do you know? 405 and 407. What do they correspond to?
They correspond to Policy Note 800, which is Management Operational Risk Information.
Right. And where those two items are listed as unchecked, what does that mean?
That means that the individual, one or two things, either the individual hasn't gathered that information on the visit, or the individual has gathered that information but unfortunately hasn't entered it correctly onto the system.
Right. And then checked, which is the box at the bottom, you can see 504 appliance access difficulties, and then crew access difficulties. And your name appears under previous edition for that entry. Again, is it right that those numbers correspond to a particular risk in Policy 800?
Yes, there's a risk matrix in Policy 800, yes.
And so would it follow that where that risk has been checked and the system has picked it up correctly, it would make its way onto this document?
That's correct.
Right.
Can I just talk about that? If we could scan back up, it's quite important to talk about that. There are two other unchecked items on there,
Yeah.
which again is really relevant to high-rise premises now. So if you see 403A
Yes.
and 403B, so the expectation is, and for whatever reason that hasn't happened on this data entry, if those two boxes are checked, then automatically generates a further tab within the ORD, Operational Risk Database, and that's called an EPIP, Electronic Premise Information Plate. And basically what that allows us, what information that holds is specific to a high-rise premise. So entrances, exits, fixed installations, fire lifts, orientation of the building, numbers of floors, dimensions. And on this, unfortunately, it has not been annotated on there.
Thank you very much. Do you know whether there was an EPIP for Grenfell Tower as of June 2017?
Looking at that system, but depending when that screenshot was taken, it would suggest there wasn't, no.
Right.
Can I just clarify some other points on this?
Yes.
Yes,
So
of course.
at the top we've got medium to low, and that denotes so medium to low you've got a score of 300. So we have certain markers within the policy note 800. So anything up to a score of 150, we have to, as a watch officer, decide does that need inclusion on the ORD? Is that enough of a risk to put that onto our operational database? And as you can see, the Grenfell Tower scored 300. So it's on that system it shows medium to low. risk
Yeah.
and visit at least every 3 years. So what will happen is that as a minimum requirement, any watch, this is not just related to Grenfell Tower, this is any high-rise property, any building, or that will be on our operational review database. So the expectation would be that a watch would have to visit a premise of that medium to low risk roughly every 3 years.
Yes. And 300 out of how much? Was the first question I would ask.
Yeah. But if I'm honest, without referencing it back to policy note 800, I wouldn't be able to tell you what the maximum was.
Well, let me see if I can help you, because you mentioned policy 800. And I assume you're familiar with the policy.
Yes, yes.
Let's just have a look at it, just follow this through. If you go to the policies bundle and go to tab 6, this is policy 800 as at 25th of August 2015, and it's entitled Management of Operational Risk Information. You were, I think, wanting to refer to the scores, and there's a risk grading matrix at Appendix 2. Could you be shown that? It's page 17 internally. I don't think it's got the actual scores on there. Oh, yes, it does. In red, it's above 750, which is high. Does that help you with your recollection of,
Yes.
of the...
That's correct, yeah.
So on that, Grenfell Tower at 300 would be medium to low in yellow there.
That's correct.
In your experience, did you ever play any part in scoring buildings for the purposes of applying this risk grading matrix?
Yes, I have.
Did you do that for Grenfell Tower ever?
Can't recall if I actually scored using policy note 800 on Grenfell Tower, no.
While we're in the policy, Mr. Dowden, I'll take this very quickly if I can. Let's go back a little bit. If you go to paragraph 10, levels of risk, types of plan and frequency of visits, which is on page 8 internally, you'll see that there is the table that we saw a moment ago. And if you look at paragraph 10.2, station managers and borough commanders must ensure that 100% of the visits identified for a station based upon the matrix above are completed in accordance with the programme of visits as prompted by the station diary. From your knowledge, Mr. Dowden, did the station manager at North Kensington or the borough commander responsible for North Kensington ensure that all the visits carried out by North Kensington crews were completed in accordance with the programme prompted by the station diary?
That'd be quite difficult for me to comment because the only way I can reference that is in terms of the quality assurance, the station manager and the so he'll have or she will have a first sort of glance at the information input by station personnel, and if they're happy, then obviously that will then be submitted to the PDA. So I would not be able to comment. I don't know.
No. Now, you're familiar with this policy because you said you were, and you referred to it. Can I just ask you very briefly one or two questions about some other parts of it? Really very briefly. If you go back to page 5 of 26, you look at paragraph 7.4, and it says, where risks are recorded on the ORD, the information gathering process will need to record the detail of the hazards and all influencing issues. Were you aware of that policy and its requirements?
Yes, so within the operational review database, there is a section where you can identify hazards within that property, yes.
And looking down at 7.5, it says, where possible, the information gathered will allow the following to be achieved. And I'll just take you to the third bullet point, the formulation of a tactical plan in order to effectively implement appropriate operational procedures to mitigate risk. And again, when you were doing your visits and entries into the ORD, did you know that the requirement of the policy was to allow the formulation of a tactical plan, in part?
Again, yes, this isn't just single to Grenfell Tower. We have to, going back to that risk matrix, depending on how high it scores, there is a tactical plan, but there is, let's say, it's like a pre-formed document electronically that allows you to populate your tactical plan.
So would it be fair to say that the tactical plan generated for any high-rise block, for example, or indeed any set of premises covered by this policy, that tactical plan would only be as good as the information on the ORD?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes. Right. So, thank you, Mr. Dowden. You can put anything. You don't have the policy bundle. Well, I do. I'm putting it away. I want to turn now to the night of the fire. Would you like a
Can I
break?
just ask for a quick refreshment break before we
Yes, of course.
carry on?
Absolutely.
Would 5 minutes be enough, do you think?
That's fantastic. Thank
Right.
you.
You leave us now then, I'll be coming after you in a minute. We'll rise for 5 minutes. Okay. All right, well, Mr. Dowden's on his way down. We'll have to wait just a short time until he's with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, Mr. Dowden?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Millett.
Mr. Dowden, I'm going to ask you about the first call-out to Grenfell Tower now. On the evening of the 13th of June 2017, you came on duty at 8 p.m.
That's correct.
And when reporting for duty on that evening, can you tell me who was the most senior officer on duty at North Kensington?
That was myself.
And I think you detailed 2 firefighters to the watchroom.
Yeah, we have one firefighter who will take the primary role of looking after the watchroom, receiving fire calls, inquiries from members of the public, making log bookings, and then we have what we call number 2, his assistant, who will then, if he's called out or she's called out on a fire call, then at least we have someone else to man the watchroom, to facilitate the watchroom.
Yeah. Where is the watchroom in the station at North Kensington?
It's on the ground floor level, adjacent to the appliance bay.
Right. Now, I think you say in your statement that downtime started at midnight and you were resting after that point.
Correct.
Do you know what the rest of Red Watch were doing during downtime?
They would most probably be resting as well.
And during downtime, is the watchroom manned?
There is a facility to have someone present in the watchroom. The tendency will be that if a fire call is received, then it is a duty of the watchroom attendant to make sure they are first into the watchroom to receive that call and to start gathering the information in terms of from the call slip that's on the teleprinter.
And who was the watchroom attendant on duty at and from midnight on the 13th, 14th of June? Remember?
Without referring to my statement, well, I wouldn't. I can't remember.
It's in your statement. You don't remember?
No.
Okay. And in your statement on page 1, you say, it's page 2 actually, but you say that you got a call at 00:55 on the 14th of June to Grenfell Tower. Do you remember, when you did your statement, where you got that time from?
The only reference I would have to that would either be one or two things from the actual, we call them tip sheet, the information sheet that was available at the time, or I referenced that back into our mobilising system. We have a sort of electronic log, our vision mobilising system.
Right. Vision, okay. Now, you say that the mobilisation call came through the watchroom. Do you remember who took that call?
Not name specific. The assumption that it would be the watchroom attendant.
Do you know or do you remember where the call came in from?
The call comes from our control centre.
Control centre. And that night, I think everyone knows, that was at Stratford.
Later on, I understand that's correct, yes.
Yes. And is that the usual line of communication to a fire station in London, that the 999 call goes to control and then control call the watchroom?
That is generally what happens. There is another sort of process to that we call running call. So if a appliance is mobile, and that means if they're not at station, whether they're attending on the way back from an incident, training session or familiarisation visit, then if we're directly contacted by a member of public, then we can also almost self-mobilise, but we have to put that call into control.
Right, okay. And in terms of communications between the control room at Stratford or Merton, how does it work? Is there a landline or is it a radio communication or some other means?
It's so what happens is that we have a mobilising system at every station within London that when it's simultaneous activity. So when we receive a fire call or any call to an incident, all lights will come on within the station. There's an audible warning or an audible sound, a mobilisation message, and that will denote the appliances from that station who are attending. At the same time, you have a teleprinter in the watchroom that will also basically come out on a piece of paper, and on that piece of paper you have various information relating to that fire call or that incident. That's the address, the classification of incident, the appliances attending, how that was mobilised, if it was a mobile number, if it was an auto dialer or an AFA system, automatic fire alarm system, the appliances who are attending or in attendance. So there's a range of information you can sort of gather from that piece of paper.
And that piece of paper, is it sometimes called a tip sheet?
That's correct.
Right. Is it TIP or is it TIP? Does it stand for anything?
No, I just think it's a brigade terminology.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's an automatic system. What triggers it? Is it a computer message or?
As at that point in 2007, it's a computer-generated program. It used to be manually logged by control operators, and they would have to mobilise themselves. Now it's controlled by this software system called Vision, and that is a computer-based software system that basically manages the calls coming in, appliance mobilising, and the filtering down to station level as well.
Okay. And the information on the tip sheet, where does that come from?
That would be from. I don't work in control, but from my knowledge, it's best two of it. It will be from this software package Vision, as all the data inputted into it in terms of the resources, appliance available, their attributes, officers, and everything else.
And what information about the premises would the tip sheet contain? You gave us a little list earlier, a little bit. How much information about the premises would be contained on the tip sheet?
Not so much on the tip sheet. With relation to high-rise premise, there may be what we call an underwrite. So at the bottom of that tip sheet, if there's a particular comment logged against that premise or building, that will be available on the tip sheet. And generally for high-rise premises, that will come up, this is a high-rise premise.
I see. Okay. Casting your mind back to the night, could you describe for us the moment that you received the shout or the call?
It's very difficult to be specific on the moment I received the call because, North Kensington is a busy operational fire station, so it's very difficult to differentiate between the different calls that we receive. And at that time, I don't really remember anything that really stood out about the mobilisation, if I'm honest.
How many mobilisations would you normally get a week?
It's very difficult to put a number on it. Very difficult, but and this is just a very sort of vague recollection. North Kensington, I think, is certainly the top five, one of the top 5 busiest fire stations in London.
Right. Okay. So how many would you get a week? 1 or 2, 10?
Specific to a watch on your shift, a quiet period, it could be anything up to 3 or 4 or 5. A busy period, it could be 10 or more.
Right. Right. And after the call came through, what happened next? I mean, do you remember specifically, or?
Not specifically, but the general, what will happen is that firefighters will don their PPE rig, which is their personal protective equipment, before they get onto the fire appliance, and that's depending on what machine they've designated to ride. But I don't have anything, in terms of that mobilisation that really sort of stuck out at that point.
So, yeah. That was my next question. Was there anything unusual about that mobilisation that you'd want to tell us about?
I think the only thing that would generally be different about that mobilisation was, and that only was identified when we was en route to the incident, but at that point in time our PDA, which is our predetermined attendance to high-rise fires, was to 4 pumping appliances. And at that point of mobilisation there was only 3 pumping appliances that have been allocated to that incident.
Yes. And you say on page 2 that you were aware that, it's just 4 lines up from the bottom, that 331 Kensington's pump ladder had also been deployed to Grenfell Tower. How did you become aware of that?
That's part of the information that will be included on the tip sheet. Okay. So not just specific to the station, other appliances attending according to the predetermined attendance. Right.
And you say that pumps G271 and 272 were called. I think G271 is your pump.
That's correct.
Was another word we use for fire engine or appliance?
Yeah, we use phonetic, so in the London Fire Brigade we don't refer to it as G, we refer to it as Golf. But
Golf.
It is G. Yeah. As for a member of the public, they would understand that as G271.
That's correct. Right. So you had 271 and 272. What was the difference between 271 and 272?
The difference is that as a watch manager, either A or B, you will ride a pump ladder. And then the Golf 272 will generally be officer in charge of that will be a crew manager. The only real difference is that the pump ladder will have 135 ladder, so that means it extends to a maximum of 13.5 metres, and then on the pump you will have a 9 metre ladder.
Right. In terms of communication abilities, are they the same or different? Is a pump ladder the same as a pump in terms of its ability to communicate?
So in terms of its radio
yes.
capabilities, yes. It also have the same main scheme radio, yes.
Right. And just in terms of the people that were on the two pumps, on G271, I think you had firefighter Danny Bills driving. Remember that?
As far as my recollection accounts, yes, that's correct.
And I think you say you were next to him as watch manager in the front.
That's correct.
So he's driving, he's on the right, you're on the near side, I suppose.
On the near side, that's
on the
correct.
left. And immediately behind you, who have you got?
So immediately behind me will be what, in terms of their name?
Yes.
Without referring that to my statement, it'd be...
Yes, I mean, we've got the list of people who were there, the second paragraph on page 2. We've got Danny Bills driving, and Danny Brown, firefighter Danny Brown. Where was he? Do you remember where he was?
Again, this is I think he would have been behind myself, because he was, that's generally where the rider sits, who is the watchroom attendant, because it's the closest position to the watchroom. So it's the easiest way for them to get to the watchroom onto the fire appliance.
Right, I see. Oh, I see. And then crew manager Charlie Batterby, where was he sitting?
He would have been on the offside, so the offside behind the driver.
Right. And then Dave now I often mispronounce his name. Is it Badillo or Badillo?
Badillo.
Badillo, right. And he was also on G271. Where would he have been sitting?
He would have been in between either Charlie and Danny in the middle. Well, not in the middle because we have 4 seats across the rear of the cab. So he would have taken one of the vacant seats that were available in the middle of the appliance.
Right. So that night on G271 there were 5 of you.
That's correct.
And then on G272 you've listed Chris Secret as the crew manager, firefighter Tom Abel, who was driving, and in the back, firefighters Alex de St Aubin, Justin O'Byrne and Chris Dorgu.
That's correct.
Yeah, you've put it in your statement. Do you remember that? Or have you looked at a document to refresh yourself?
Yeah, I did look. I mean, I had to refresh myself in terms of the ridership levels, and that was done from our STAR system, which is how we manage our personnel sort of software system.
If you look at the very bottom of page 2, the top of page 3, you're talking about what happens en route. And you say, I updated the members of my team in relation to the radio traffic from control and reminded them of the tactics in relation to high-rise buildings, breathing apparatus policies, the equipment required for the bridgehead, and the fact that the bridgehead would be located 2 floors below the fire floor. Do you remember, what did you tell them about the tactics that you were going to adopt at this fire?
I don't think it was very much a specific in terms of individual detailing of roles, because at the point you receive the incident and at the point you're operational, there isn't really time to have a real detailed briefing, and that's why it's obviously we have those on arrival tactics and theory sessions based back at station. So it's more of a, and that's not related just to this incident. Any incident I will get as an incident commander, and every incident commander will adopt this who's on the frontline pumping appliance. It's a personal responsibility to update your crews if there's further traffic coming through in terms of, if traffic in terms of persons reporting multiple calls, and just to refresh the crews in terms of, okay, this is what we've got, this is the expectation. It would be naive of me to say here that I detailed very, very clear, because you don't have time to do that since the commander on the fire appliance. No. That's all part of the pre-planning.
Part of the pre-planning.
Yeah.
Right. And how easy is it to have a 4 or 5 way conversation when you're donned in personal protective equipment and you've got a diesel engine running at speed?
Yeah, it is difficult, but it's. I would still, if I get up radio traffic and updates, it's still very important to try and get that radio traffic to the crew members.
Now you say in the next sentence, my appliance. Do you see it says there? 4 lines down from the top of page 3, my appliance has a mobile data terminal, MDT, on which important information about every premises can be accessed. This information concerning tactics, layout, number of flats, rendezvous points, and the location of dry risers, plus any other information that may be useful when fighting a fire. I'll come to the next sentence about EPIP in a minute. But just focusing on that sentence for the moment, Mr. Dowden. My first question is a mobile data terminal present on every pump in the London Fire Brigade?
Yes.
Not just the pump ladders?
No, it's on the pump ladder and a pump.
Right. Could you just describe for us, you're sitting in the cab, where is the mobile data terminal and what does it look like?
So if this was my position in the fire appliance, the situation of the MDT is between myself and the driver.
Right. And when you get onto the appliance at the start of a call,
yes.
Shout, does the mobile data terminal come on automatically, or do you have to boot it up and switch it on? How does it work?
At the same time the call is received at station, because it's run from the same mobilising system Vision, so the information that's on the tip sheet will also be duplicated onto the mobile data terminal.
I see. And it's ready and on, is it, when you get into the cab and go?
There are, not on this night, there are occasions that sometimes it is a computer system and it does have glitches and failures, but on that night, yes, it was available.
It was, right. And can you interrogate it? Can you ask it questions?
You can interrogate it. You can't answer it questions, but there is different, we spoke about earlier, the operational risk database. So the information that is collated from the ORD is available to access on your mobile data terminal.
Right. So if you... Okay, and if you go to the... We've seen the ORD before. Perhaps just go back to it again.
Can I just comment? One more thing that is important to comment on is that also we have a system where we have to identify control that we've sort of, one, accepted the fire call. So that is also in the MDT. There's a green icon that flashes up and we have to accept it. Also, we have another tab on the mobile data terminal, which is a status button.
Right.
Okay, so it's probably quite to explain the background on that.
Yes,
so
please
status
do.
1 is when any either pump or pump ladder is operationally ready at a fire station to respond to fire calls. Status 2, which will need to be pressed when you receive a mobilisation, basically means yes, I've received that call at the fire station and we are proceeding to the incident. Status 3 is when you're on attendance at the incident. Status 6 is when you're mobile, so that could be when you finish at an incident and you're on your way back to station. If you're off on an off-site visit, station visit, you also have status 15, which is mobile to standby. So if I get requested from control to stand by at another station, and I have to relay that information by pressing 15 on my MDT, and that confirms to control that I am mobile to stand by at a neighbouring station.
Thank you. Can I just get back to status 1?
Yep.
Which you said that's when you're operationally ready at a fire station to respond to fire calls. Who is it in the fire station who makes the crew status 1?
So, when for the fire appliances, that will be the officer in charge. But we can back that up with the watchman attendant because sometimes, as I said, it is a computer system. Sometimes there are errors and it can be delayed getting through. So it is good practice also to make sure that we can make phone contact with control to confirm that that appliance is status 1 and operationally ready.
Right. What, as it were, what button do you press to show your status 1?
It is literally a button with number 1 on it.
In the cab?
In the MDT. On the MDT,
right.
Yeah. Okay. Touch screen.
And so they're all available, but all those statuses
all touch screen, yeah.
Right. Thank you. Now, you say in your statement that you printed off, en route, you printed off the tactical plan details. And that's on page 3, en route. Do you remember doing that?
Yeah, I have a vague memory of actually having the printed out document in my hand, yes.
Can I just ask you about those tactical plan details? I'm not sure we've got them as a document, but before I put a document to you to see if it helps with your recollection, what did the document tell you? What did the tactical plan details tell you about what to expect?
It's going to be difficult for me to reference exactly to that night, but from my knowledge previous to that night and after that night, it's a I wouldn't say a snapshot, but it gives you an overview of that operational risk database that's been uploaded. So it gives you a site profile in terms of the dimensions of the building, the height of the building, the life risk, water supplies, any hazards within that premise, and that's not specific to Grenfell Tower. That would be to any property that is subject to an operational review database and a 72D program. So any hazards within that premise, so if it's medical oxygen, if there's a hoarder within the premise, any processes. We can reference policy into it. Any fixed installations, your best site and route access, operational planning considerations, other agencies that we may need on scene.
Right. So it's quite an information-rich document if it's done right.
If it's, as a reference to, if the data entry has been quite robust and it is correct, then yes.
Can I ask you to look at a document in tab 13, Mr. Trial Director, of the bundle, the documents bundle, which is the ORD. We looked at it before. Let's have it up on the screen again, if we can. And if you turn, please, to the third page of this document. Well, perhaps we should go to the second page first, actually. Second page. And then, no, wrong, my fault. Third page, sorry. Right. You see the address, and this is on the ORD, and then there's a map. Do you remember whether that was information you got on the MDT on the night, or the kind of information you would have got?
It's the kind of information we get, but it's in a slightly different format. Because that there, what we're showing there is the actual sort of the station-based desktop version.
Right, I see. And if you turn to the next page, there's something called, if you go to the next page, which is page 4 of the relativity reference, there's something called tactical plan. And it says tactical plan at the top, operational contingency plan, and then site details. Is that the tactical plan that you printed off?
Not the exact tactical plan, because that copy we have there is the one that will be, again, a station-based level through the station diary, so it's a desktop, that's a desktop version. It's very similar to one we can print off on at that point in June 2017, yes.
Right. If you go to the top of the document, operational contingency plan, plan name Grenfell Tower, version 1, date effective from, and we see 30th of October 2009, and then date documented the same. Was the version that you printed off in the mobile data terminal on the way to the Grenfell Tower fire this version, or was it an updated version?
I wouldn't be able to confirm that. I would suggest it was that version, but yeah.
Okay. Well, let's see if we can just go through the document, seeing if what you see on the page here was what you had on the night, or whether what you had on the night was more. You'll see site details, and you've got high-rise block of flats, 20 floors, and there's the dimensions and life risks, 400 persons, water supply, hydrants in adjacent roads, and then operational hazards, glass planing, and coander effect. Do you remember seeing that on the night, or did you have more information?
No, I do have a vague, I remember printing that document off. But if I'm going to be honest, I don't have an absolute clear recollection of every single piece of information that I sort of gleaned from that additional.
Okay.
I printed off the appliance.
Okay. And if you go to the next page, access, you'll see primary entry Grenfell Road, and also by foot Bramley Road, and then site access, limited space for appliances, first engine to pull directly outside main entrance. Do you remember seeing that on the mobile data terminal?
Yeah. I can't confirm whether that's something I had it, but I can't remember specifically screwing down into those areas. And
just to try a couple of other things. Fireman's drop lift key opens main entrance door and all internal doors for 90 seconds. Should alarm be activating, all internal doors unlock. Do you remember en route seeing something about drop key?
No.
And then under en route considerations, you'll see in the last section or last box, in the bigger box, en route considerations, you see this building has a stay put policy. Do you remember seeing that on the way to the Grenfell Tower fire?
That's not something that I can remember that stands out. And particularly on route to the fire at Grenfell Tower, because as a command you've got, you're en route, your considerations, and I received the 2 bits of further traffic from control in terms of the additional appliance to make the predetermined attendance, and the additional call we received to flat 16, and your focus sometimes can be taken away. So that's the only reason why maybe that I haven't taken that information down, because I had further traffic from control to deal with as well.
Yes. Really what I'm seeking to get a handle on, Mr. Dowden, is whether the document we're looking at here bears any relationship to what you remember of what you saw on the mobile data terminal.
I can only presume that is as was on the night, yes.
Okay. But if we find anything else, then I'll obviously ask you that. Thank you. Now, in terms of the usefulness of the information in the data in the mobile data terminal, can you, in very brief terms, tell me what you learned when you looked at it about the layout and fire safety features of Grenfell Tower prior to your arrival?
I can't say that at that moment in point I learned anything, if I'm honest. I had a familiarisation visit at Grenfell Tower. So nothing sticks out in my mind, just from the information from the ORD, that MDT, that I had learnt anything.
Well, let me just test it a little bit by asking you some specific questions, and if you don't know, you don't know. But did you learn anything from the mobile data terminal about the height of the building and the number of floors?
I do remember, if I'm honest, I do remember that's one of the things I have a vague remember in terms of the number of floors and the height of the building. That's something I did glean off the...
Right. Did you learn anything about the nature of the evacuation plan for Grenfell Tower that had been devised by the premises fire risk assessment or any other plan?
Was that on the... You're asking if that was on the MDT?
Well, I'm asking you whether you learnt anything from the MDT about the nature of any evacuation plan for Grenfell Tower.
I can't say I learnt anything because I don't think that information was, from what I understand, available.
Did you learn anything about who to talk to, who to identify or contact as the responsible person responsible for Grenfell Tower?
Not at that moment in time, no.
Did the MDT information give you anything about evacuation routes or protected staircases? Do you remember?
I don't remember, no.
Mr. Chairman, it's 3:30, and I know we've had one short break this afternoon. Perhaps we should have another.
Well, you're going to be moving on to other matters,
Yes, I
aren't
am.
you? Well, that probably would be a good idea. And you'd probably like a break as well, Mr. Dowden.
Yes, please.
Right, well, we'll have a short break now. Say 10 minutes, that should be enough.
Okay.
All right, and be back here then, if you would, at 20 to 4. Okay, you leave us now, and the usher will help you out. think Mr. Dowden's been, or is being called, so we'll only just have to wait a moment.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, can I just say I'm detecting that the witness is tired.
Yes.
He's been under a lot of pressure all day. I think I would like to finish off a particular line with him, but I would suggest if it's all right with you, we finish at 4 o'clock.
Well, you take your time, but if we can finish slightly on the early side, I think that would be a good thing.
Very well. Mr. Chairman, I've just had information. I think Mr. Dowden is not feeling able to continue today.
Oh, really?
That is what I'm told. So I think, in fairness to him, I think we would get more out of him, and he would be able to serve us better if we were to stop now and resume tomorrow morning.
Well, I certainly don't want to ask him to go on if he's not able to do so, or not feeling fit to do so. Mr. Millett, I've been becoming increasingly concerned during the course of the day that Mr. Dowden is finding this a difficult exercise, and I'm very conscious that we are about to get to that part of the story which he's likely to find most difficult to deal with.
Yes.
And I'm asking you, but through you, those who are responsible for his welfare, to consider whether giving evidence in this way is the best thing for him. We need to have his evidence, but we need to take whatever steps we can to ensure that he is as comfortable as possible and therefore able to give us the best evidence that he can. It may be that we could make other arrangements. They aren't in place at the moment, but I think they could be put in place fairly quickly. But I would need some guidance from others as to whether that is desirable and whether he would feel more comfortable doing that or not. I'm very conscious of the fact that he is clearly an officer who takes his position very seriously and might not wish to give evidence in another way. He may feel that it's part of his duty to give evidence from the witness box in the ordinary way.
Yes.
So I wouldn't want to make an order about that without knowing what his own reaction would be.
No.
But can I just raise that as a possibility? And maybe those who are in touch with him could explore that possibility.
Yes.
I didn't remind him as he left that he's not to talk to other people about his evidence, but I make it clear now that he can talk to other people about the manner in which he gives evidence at the inquiry, and I would welcome any assistance that I can be given on that front.
Yes. Well, I'm sure he'll be reminded of the requirement not to discuss his evidence with anybody overnight. But in terms of the arrangements, perhaps the best thing, Mr. Chairman, is if I speak to Mr. Walsh and Mr. Seward about what arrangements can be made to take the best evidence from him we can during tomorrow.
Yes.
And it may be that we have a different arrangement. We'll try and put that in place as fast as we can
Well,
overnight.
I can say I think it would help me if you could have that conversation as soon as possible.
Yes.
And let me know what the outcome of it is, because once I know that, we can speak to the technical people and get any necessary changes put in place.
Yes. Yes. Well,
Right.
Mr. Chairman, I think we'll do that and take it from there. Can I ask that we at least notionally signal a start of 9:30 tomorrow morning again? I'm conscious I've got quite a lot of material still to go through with this witness.
Yes, and just so that people understand, it's not that we are feeling masochistic. The problem we have with the firefighter witnesses is that they are here in accordance with a rota which has been agreed to fit in with their own professional rostering arrangements. So we can't just change them in order to suit ourselves, otherwise we shall interfere with the London Fire Brigade's arrangements. So we do need to try and keep up to schedule, and I think for that reason it's wise to start a bit earlier tomorrow and possibly the day after. We'll see how we go. And if we have an early end to the afternoon, we shan't have done quite as badly as we would otherwise have done. So I'm going to rise now and say that I'll sit again at 9:30 tomorrow, and we'll resume with Mr. Dowden then.
Yes.
Thank you very much.